Okay. Okay, well, welcome everybody to this second meeting in May, and we're looking forward today to hearing what everybody's thinking about doing and maybe even started doing over the next few months. So if we can do a quick whiz round of introductions for people to say where they are and who they are, so that we know who we're talking to, and people viewing this later will also know. So could I start with someone other than me? So would somebody like to go?
Go on, I'll go next. Norman, calling from Surrey, which is about 20 Surrey Hills, 20 miles south of London, and it's been a nice, warm, sunny spring day.
Thank you, Norman. Okay. Russ?
Jose here from Chile.
Oh, right, lovely.
Jose here from Chile in a lovely sunny autumn day.
Yes,
The
all right.
opposite.
Good to see you, Josephina. Okay, thank you. So now I'm losing the plot here. Jenny, would you say where you are?
Yes, I'm in Surrey as well, so it's been sunny here as well.
Great. Russ?
Yeah, Surrey as well. About a half-hour drive between me and Norman, though.
Right. Okay, there's quite a contingency in Surrey.
Yeah. Well, we not so much early adopters as early adoptees by Norman and Jenny in my case.
Right. Your contract says you can't leave, does it?
Exactly. I've tried.
Pathways in Surrey should be the name.
Yes. Well, any of you who don't live in Surrey, you'll be very familiar with the place by the time this project comes to an end. You'll have learned a lot about it. So that's great. So who have I got next on my screen? So, oh, sorry, I'm losing. I need to look at a different display. Sorry, that's better. No, it's not. Glyn, sorry, go ahead.
Glyn from just outside Prague, and it's been the second day we've had a summery day.
Very nice.
Sorry.
Thank you. So I think Britt.
Yeah, hello.
Hello.
I'm Britt Svoen. I come from Lillehammer in Norway. And we met Norman when he had a great introductory speech to our conference, Lifelong Learning Conference, for a couple of months ago, I think, or maybe it's even 3. So that's how me and my colleague Irena is connecting to the project. Very nice to meet you all.
Great. Irena, did you want to say something?
I want to say something. I'm sorry, my web camera is not working. I just tested it, so it was perfect, but now it's not. I'm a colleague of Britt, yes, and also staying or living in Lillehammer, and I'm really looking forward to participate in this this project. Looking forward to it.
Great.
I will try to fix the web camera.
Yes,
so.
please do.
Yeah.
At the moment, so
Yeah.
Thank you. Valerie?
Hi everyone, I'm joining you from Tipperary in Ireland, and in typical Irish weather fashion, yesterday it was 18 degrees and today it has rained all day. So,
So you're ready for anything?
yeah, very Irish, very Irish. Just give it a minute and it'll change.
So
That's great.
no climate change there then.
No.
That's reassuring for us all. Chrissy.
Hello, everybody. It started raining just now in the Peak District in the UK. Rain is never far away from here. That's why it's green, I guess. But what do? I mean, I joined a bit late. Do I just say a few things who I am? Or?
Just say who you are and where you are, and then we'll move on and we'll hear from everybody.
Okay. I'm an associate professor in education at the University of Leeds, and I've set up a number of open communities such as the Creative HE, and Norman found me through a survey he did many years ago. I think it was in 2013 through the CEDA and the academic development community.
Okay, great. So some long-standing relationships here and some people meeting each other for the first time. That's a lovely mix. Okay, have I got everybody, or is anybody not spoken? That the tiles keep moving, so.
Hi, Gay Mannering.
Hey, sorry.
I'm in Dundee and my system has crashed twice in the last 5 minutes. So
Well,
a bit technologically challenged.
Well, thank you for keeping your nerve, and I'm sorry, I wasn't sure what was happening with you, so that's why I wanted you.
No, neither was I.
Okay, well, it looks a little healthier now, yes. So
Well,
yeah.
maybe, yeah.
Okay.
Anyway, Dundee is sunny at the moment.
That's brilliant to know. We're getting this weather forecasting or weather presentation down very well. And Catalina, you've just popped up.
Hello, my name is Catalina Caicedo from Colombia. As I told Norman, I'm getting on my car right now to get to a meeting, but I'll be here listening to you without my camera, so I won't get you dizzy. I'm here. And I'm from Marymount, Medellin, Colombia, South America. I'm working with SDG, I don't remember which one.
Okay. That's great. Well, Catalina, sorry, Catalina.
Treatment.
You're breaking up a little, Catalina, so perhaps we can get back to you. But I
sure.
Go ahead, Catalina.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, so I was telling you I'm from Marymount, Medellin. It is a school in Colombia, South America, and we are working SDG 13 with a design thinking methodology to get our students and Marymount community as a whole to do recycling, like all the separation of trash, because there's something we noticed wasn't happening right here at school.
Okay, that's brilliant. Well, thank you for that update, because I realize you're going to be concentrating on driving. I said to Norman we wouldn't say anything very exciting because we need to keep you calm and in control of your
Okay, I'll be here.
Thank you. Take care.
I'm going to mute myself, okay? But I'll be listening to everything you say.
Excellent, thank you.
Thank you.
Eleanor, I think you popped up. Am I going back on myself now, or have you just arrived? You need to unmute yourself.
Yeah, I have just arrived. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, it's fine. Thank you. Welcome. So if you just say who you are and where you are.
Okay, my name is Eleanor Pierre. I usually reside in Canada, but I'm vacationing back in my home island of Trinidad and Tobago for a couple of weeks.
And how's your weather there? We've been talking about weather.
Yeah, it's way too hot for my liking, but I'm not complaining.
Okay, so now, is there anybody who hasn't had a chance to introduce themselves and tell us about their weather? No, everybody's here. That's great. Okay, so this is the second meeting, and it's an opportunity to very briefly, and which is why we asked those of you, thank you, who have submitted a single PowerPoint slide, to very briefly get a kind of overview of the patchwork quilt of projects that we are embarking on. So we've got about half an hour really only to do this in, which is going to mean 2 or 3 minutes to give us the flavor of your project. There will be other opportunities to explain much more about the context, much more about the ins and outs, the challenges, the progress, and all the other exciting things that we're looking forward to hearing about, but that's not for this meeting. So if that's okay, it's a flavor of what you're embarking on or what you have embarked on. And I forgot to say that I'm in Surrey and it's just starting to drizzle here. So on that note, well, let's remember the sunshine in other places and set off on this description. And did you really want me to go first, Norman? Thank you. Okay, well, if I can try and do this in a couple of minutes, that will be a good model, won't it, for others? So as you can see, I've just tried to capture here the sorts of discussions I'm having with a 3-year-old, an 8-month-old, and their parents. So these are my grandchildren and the garden that they are in for the first time. They've just moved house. So I have these very busy parents who really, I've realized, are more the focus for what I'm trying to do. And through these busy parents, I'm trying to engage my grandchildren. I'm trying to be a grandmother who is interested in the planet through their garden. And I'm trying to engage those children, more the 3-year-old than the 8-month-old, although she's just crawling through the grass. So she's deeply embedded in this project. And I realize also that what I'm trying to do is make connections between this garden and the planet, between parents and children and grandparents. And my selective attention now is starting to get me interested in lots of other things, these projects, but also other things that are happening nationally and even internationally, not just the SDGs, but the various things that are going on, which are also giving me hope. So I think that's the flavor of what I'm trying to do. And I hope that therefore it makes sense of my single slide. Okay. I'm very happy to answer questions, but my slides have been shared in the LinkedIn space. So please ask me questions and give me suggestions. So thank you. Shall we move on to the next one, Norman? And I will try to watch the time and gently nudge you forward, if that's okay.
Well, it's not allowing me to change the slide, unfortunately, Melissa. I don't know if anyone's got, oh, there we go. Good.
Better? Okay.
Yep.
Good. I didn't want us to have that much focus on my project. So this is Josephina's
This
project.
is me. Yes. Yes.
Please tell us in a couple of minutes.
I'm a teacher. I had a teacher at school, a preschool in Chile, and I tried before to engage parents with the idea of using some of the SDGs with their as a family and tell us as a community what they're doing. And so I tried in a positive note to make them during Planet Earth Week, which we had this time, in a positive way, tell them, okay, why don't you share with us what you are already doing? So it would be in a positive note. And we actually had very, very little participation. I had to do all kinds of tricks basically to motivate them. I think I even thought about paying so that they would participate. It was really difficult, but in the end, when we got the children more involved, because we wanted to do activities with children and activities with parents, and this was something that it would be led by parents, and children were already doing their own activities in each classroom. And we would be making it public through media, through Instagram, and sending pictures to home and everything. But parents didn't want really to participate, and they would just pass by this big earth that had post-its in green and blue, in which they could write down what they already did to help planet Earth. And after chasing them around, we had a higher participation. And we had a graph also that they could use if I was thinking in multiple intelligences, and maybe someone didn't want to write, but they would just want to graphic something. Mm-hmm. And apparently we have more writing people in school because parents were a bit more motivated by that. So basically, I'm still motivated and want to push forward. Sometimes I always think that the bad note about, we've talked about this previously, it's so little what I can do to make a difference that maybe I just block myself from it. So I was thinking about more dramatic images to send home, but then again, still going on. And my next step will be engage Granny Power, as I told you, with grandparents. I'm hoping that I have a better participation rate in that sense.
Well, yes, and your project is very close to my heart, as everyone will realize from these two descriptions. So great, it'll be really interesting to see how this unfolds. Thank you. Shall we move on?
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll say a little bit. about Victoria's slide. Victoria can't be with us tonight. She's not very well, unfortunately. We hope she gets better soon. Victoria is an academic development advisor at Loughborough University. And I think the core of her project is to understand more deeply how all these things that are shown in that cloud on the right-hand side of the slide affect her own practice and her own environment. So there are many things, and I'm sure those are just there to illustrate the sorts of things that she is concerned with. So it's basically applying sustainability to her role, her practice, her environment. And I think it's about raising her own awareness, leading to changes in practice. And I guess underlying that implicitly is the idea of leading others by example. And I think probably that's all I can say about this at this stage, and Victoria can elaborate as we progress through the project.
Yes, that's really helpful sort of headlines about that, and it thank you for the explanation. It helps to see that slide and hear what you have to say. Great, it'll be really fascinating to see what comes out of that. So can we move on, Jenny? To Jenny?
Okay, what I tried to capture was the journey I was going through in finding it. I was finding it difficult, like many of you, to identify a theme. I recognized that my motivation actually was taking me away from education, which was the obvious area. I somehow felt that was too easy, and I wanted something a bit more demanding. In the end, it became so demanding I couldn't see the wood for the trees. And it was only when I read an article that Norman actually sent me on current research into the link between the environment and personal well-being, which is not an area of my own interest and research, that it seemed self-evident that that's what I should be looking at. So I started out by thinking I would develop a template based on the article of the factors that contribute towards well-being. That has actually proved to be too constraining, and so I've ended up reverting to more of a narrative of what's happened and a brief analysis of the senses and the impact things have had on me, and illustrating with photographs or whatever else at the time. So it's very much action research, but hopefully just not proving anything new, but just adding to the fact that our closeness to the environment is well, we very much depend upon the environment for our well-being, and vice versa. And I saw today that one of the later projects that's coming in is more or less looking at the same thing, which is quite interesting.
Yes, excellent. Well, thank you for that, Jenny. I think I said when I saw your slide, it's intriguing, your missing piece. So that's lovely. Thank you very much for that description. If we could then move on, I think, Valerie?
Yeah, thanks. My work is mainly targeting schools and school leaders, and really just acknowledging the overwhelm that a lot of schools are feeling in terms of the whole climate environmental piece, and particularly now the addition of biodiversity, and just acknowledging that everybody's on a different path. So trying to find something that was tangible but very doable, and acknowledging that people in schools have different spaces. So I've challenged schools since early in the year to create a metre of meadow and to keep me updated on what's happening as that grows, and who and what visits in terms of insects and butterflies and plants, etc. And that will culminate on May 9th for May Day for Sustainability, but actually hopefully will go beyond that and will be something over the years that people will stretch. So the metre of meadow is really for our urban schools who don't have a green space, but I have said they can do a metre by 20 metres, but I'm seeing lots of images of fields, and we share those images on social media so people can follow along and see how the progress is going.
Yes, that sounds lovely. You paint a lovely picture as in your slide, but also when you're describing that, I think particularly thinking about urban schools and all the benefits of these, even a metre of meadow. So it'll be lovely to see that. So thank you. Is the next one?
Dory, the next
Yes.
one. Melissa, I'll just say again a few words about Dory. And I think it's really about context, because I've known Dory for quite a long time, but I don't know, the last 15 years or maybe. She was located in New Zealand and was a professor of urban planning. And she's now relocated back to UK in Scotland. And so her circumstances have changed radically, and she's now trying to re-establish herself back in her, I guess, original home environment in Scotland. And I think what she's chosen therefore is to her garden as a main focal point. And being an urban planner, I guess, she's picked up this idea of national park cities. And I didn't know anything about that until I just Googled it earlier today. And it really is about cultivating and helping nature in urban environments, basically. So she's trying to take the ideas of, if you like, at the scale of a large urban area, city, and bring it down to the scale of a garden. And I think that will be really, really interesting. And I guess, just to flag it up, I think this idea of scale is going to be quite important. And I know Russ has got the big word scale on his slide, so maybe Russ will say a bit more about that later. Anyway,
Yeah.
that's I think all I can say about that project at the moment.
Yes, it's lovely to see the different focus on different areas, and wondering, thinking about our map at the end of these few months when we've tried to do the work that we're setting out on now, and linking these gardens and meters of meadows and schools, and it's a lovely thought. So, and it will be interesting when we get to Russ's project later on. So thank you for that again, Norman. So the next one I think is it Janet? And she's also not. Oh no,
it's Linda. So Linda just sent us her slide a few minutes before this session. So we've not really had a chance to digest it yet, but you can see this theme of nature and how nature, if we're connected to it and related to it in some way, has a feedback to us, has an influence on us, and helps with our well-being. So I think that connects to what Jenny was saying before.
Yes. Yes.
So her question is, and how do we nurture that feeling in cities for those without access to nature? So that I think Linda is the focus for Linda's project.
Okay, again, thank you, Norman. That sounds, there's so much interlinking, isn't there, of interests and possibilities for these projects. It's great to see this developing. So is it?
Now it's Janet.
Yes,
from Canada. And Janet was saying the weather's not very conducive to outside gardening at the moment. So her project is going to be focused on cultivating plants that she can eat, because she wants to move much more to a plant-based diet. And it looks like it's a husband and wife team here working together, and the husband making things, but actually also wanting to eat the things that they're growing. So I guess those three images to some extent explain that at the moment she's in the early stages of cultivating, and I think most of it is indoors at the moment because, as she said, it's been snowing recently, so damage from frost, I guess.
Yes, it'll be interesting for her to reflect on her connection to nature when she's eating the nature that she's been nurturing. Yes. Okay, thank you. So now, yes, Eleanor, and we can hand over to Eleanor here.
Yes. So my project is planning to look at youth in the island of Trinidad, in the southern part of the island in the county of Victoria, to look at different ways that they can take care of the environment by cleaning up and by being aware of how they dispose of their garbage or their food packaging and all of those things. What I notice every time I come down here is that, especially around the tourist areas, the beaches, the public places, there are always garbage overflowing and food packaging around. So I thought of creating a curriculum. My background is curriculum design. So I decided I was going to create a little curriculum to sort of get them to be in the mindset or have a consciousness in their minds of the importance of doing a very small act of caring and what a difference it can make in the environment. So that's as far as I got. I've elicited the assistance of my nephew here so that we can collaborate and get the work on the go. How it will be implemented, we plan to go to secondary schools and get a spot and a voice in the schools to speak to the youth.
Fantastic. I love to hear these family projects. Yes, that sounds great. And obviously links with others who are concerned about that element of the environment, litter and waste and all those problems that we see, and how and why we're not motivated to do something about it. So anyway, good luck with that. That's great. Thank you, Eleanor.
Thank you.
And Jeremy.
Now, Melissa, I think it's possible that Catalina is able to say something about the slide now.
Ah, brilliant. Catalina?
Okay, maybe not. I've just admitted her back into the waiting room, so I thought maybe she has reached the end of her journey and come back in. But
Yes.
yeah, so I
driving safely.
yeah, I hope she's still driving safely. Okay, Catalina, I know you said a few words about your project when you
I'm here.
Oh,
you're here, right?
excellent. Can you speak?
Yes, I'm driving, but I still can speak.
Okay, so a couple of minutes just to give us a flavor, and as Norman was saying, you did have a chance to say something at the beginning.
Yes, so as I was telling you, we have an innovation team that is called Innovate at school, and its aim is to generate innovation culture in the school. So we go around looking for, we call it in Spanish, pains, or things we observe that need to be taken care. And one of those things that was observed is that we are not handling our trash as we should do to be able to contribute to our planet. So with some representatives from first grade up to 11th grade, two per group, it is called a challenge. So we have a methodology that is at this to our school. And so we are starting in our first phase with observations and doing some interviews around the community and everything in order to look for a solution in a community way. So everybody can be part of it and feel like being participants. So at the end, everybody will contribute as well. So we are just in the first phase, and we will have two more phases during the solution of the challenge.
Excellent. Okay, well, this was perfect positioning with just hearing what Eleanor was talking about for us to see again what a reminder of what you're trying to do. So great to hear about.
I'm not hearing you.
Oh, sorry. Okay, let's. Thank you, Catalina. We'll move on to Russ.
Sorry, I wasn't able to hear the last part you said. I'm sorry.
Okay, sorry, Russ, if you hang on. All I was saying, Catalina, was interesting links between yours and Eleanor's projects. So take a look when you have a chance. Yeah. Okay.
Thank
you.
Thank
you. Russ, sorry, the much trailed project, Russ.
Yes. To be honest, I don't really think I've got anything that I could realistically describe as an actual project. It's more a whole load of worries that I have, and that I'd quite like to get a bit more purchase on, and maybe to be able to do a bit more in terms of raising awareness and actually getting some more action going. Like Chrissy, I was actually I was a student at Leeds University, and that's where I first came across Friends of the Earth. And my wife and I both started to think about that sort of thing. She's still a teacher. I used to be a teacher. Now the best that I can manage is being a member of the Board of Governors of a local school. So I've got this idea in my mind that maybe my project would be admittedly a bit of a hazy one, hard to pin down into too many specific things, but it would be in the area of continuing to raise awareness and encourage action by other people. From my own perspective, you know, it's difficult to know where to start doing stuff. I've got a small garden. I did take a photograph of it from upstairs to show the mass of daisies that I've not mown down with my old clunky lawnmower, to show that I am, you know, engaging with stuff in that way. But I would like to influence more people, maybe starting with my own family a bit more. I mean, I've got 3 children, and while I was out marching in London the other weekend, you know, putting my life on the line there, marching down the road, shouting out and joining in the banging of, well, in my case, just my diary, but I didn't have anything else to really hit. But I thought, you know, here I am doing this, and there they all are in the theatre. They've all gone to watch a show, which was nothing to do with the environment. I mean, it was a very worthy and impressive performance, I'm led to understand. But so maybe like Valerie and my wife and one of my daughters, we can get more proactive engagement in whatever form it is in schools and obviously in higher education as far as possible. It's a question of scale again, as Dory mentioned as well earlier. So I'm just going to try and keep up with it. You know, everything I do, I seem to have a lot of time on my hands, but everything I do, I seem to have to rush, like my slide, which is why it's so boring to behold. But that's where I'm coming from anyway.
Well, thank you, and thank you for expressing your doubts. And all of us have those doubts and wonder whether what we're doing is having the impact we wish for. It'll be interesting to see how your thinking unfolds. Thank you, Russ. So, Glyn now, please.
Thanks. Difficult, this one. I'm old, retired from education, but still doing the odd thing, and have a mobility problem. So I cannot be as active as I would like. I certainly couldn't march anymore in London. But one of the things that being older and in my particular physical state does enable me to do is to think about actually how I live, and whether or not I take 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 intakes of food a day. Not going out into the fields, I no longer need so much carbohydrate, protein, etc. So during the last month, and I think I indicated that in the first meeting, I tested out on my own if I could manage on just 2 meals a day, and what the consequences of that were, and how I could avoid being hungry. And one of the ways in which I too am lucky in having a garden, and you see the top left and top right are pictures of my meditation tree, which Beautiful. I sit beneath and enjoy. And this takes my mind off ever being hungry. And I can look out of my room and see this tree. So that's one thing. And the second part is that I put slow. Actually, not having a meal gives me capital that I can use otherwise. And just this week, I've been thinking over the last few weeks, but just this week, I heard on the radio program about a project which I'm going to invest the money that I save by not eating that meal a day. I put 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. 3 meals a day is normal or not normal. I don't know. Who knows? For some people, 1 meal a day is all they ever get. Here, where I'm living in the Czech Republic, they have 3 meals. Lunchtime is the most important, and you have to have soup. Otherwise, as the education minister said, when they were discussing school meals, they said it's not lunch unless you've had soup first. So that's part of a cultural thing. But also they had little what they call what I would call in English snacks in between breakfast and lunch, and between lunch and dinner. Dinner's a name that is argued about whether or not we have at lunchtime or in the evening, but that's a linguistic and English cultural issue. So all those issues were there. So I put fast, and one of the things I wanted to do during April, I've actually had just 2 meals a day. I'm going to try fasting on 1 day per week, which would be the equivalent, more or less. So if you take 5, and see how that goes, because fasting is also meant to be good, and it sits with meditation and so on. And what I want to do is to keep a log of this and my own my physical and mental responses to doing this, and perhaps put it in one of the senior magazines, both in the UK and here in Czech Republic.
Fascinating, Glyn. Thank you. I mean, that you've talked about connection with nature with your lovely meditation tree, and then you're connecting with your own biology, I think.
Absolutely.
That's great. Well, thank you. We hope that you can sustain yourself over the next few months to join us in the meetings. Thank you. So now it's Irene and Britt. Your slide is up.
Yes, thank you. As you said when we started, we are colleagues in a department called Center for Lifelong Learning. And we were discussing what kind of project would we really be interested in. And we thought that it would take this opportunity to get a push behind and to start explore how we can, as it said here, how to bring sustainability into our flexible studies. So we will spend the next few months exploring these topics. Irene, you can join me in about why we're doing this.
Yeah. As Britt was mentioning, we have been doing a lot of discussion lately, not just connected to this project, but discussing how a flexible education best can support sustainable development, and how we actually can implement sustainability more into our study programs and courses here at the Center for Lifelong Learning. But again, where do we start? Because sustainability, it's rather comprehensive issues. So how could we try to make it more manageable, more concrete, specific in our own work practice first? Because we believe it must be included more in our daily activities and not just be treated as something we are working on as a separate matter within our study programs. We have to start with ourselves. So it's a field we are very much engaged in, but it's somehow difficult to put it into concrete action. So this is what we would like to try out. And this project actually is perfect to try to highlight some of these activities in order to work more systematic towards these topics and explore, as Britt mentioned, what sustainability can mean or should mean in our studies and courses, and also in our organization as a whole. And the latter is actually a good place to start. So yeah, Britt, you can continue.
Yeah, I will just add, just to explain what you can see on the slide here. So far we have started out with the 2 models talking about the pillars. The model in the middle is talking about the 3 P's, it's people and profit, and what was the last one? Planet. Yes. Planet, yes. And the 3 questions or the areas is education about sustainable development, education for sustainable development, and also education as sustainable development. And we are very curious to learn more about this, and not least, as Irene said, how could we implement this not only in the studies we have and the courses we have, but also in the mindset of both our colleagues, but also of our learners. Thank you.
It sounds very expansive, this project that you've described. So thank you, Britt and Irena, and I apologize, Irena, for mispronouncing your name. I had heard pronunciation, so I'm sorry about that. Thank you.
Okay.
So are we now finally with you, Norman?
I think so, yeah. Yeah, so I love my garden and I like doing things in it. And I think it gives me lots of pleasure, and it also hopefully keeps me fit and healthy. So it's very easy then to create projects around my garden. And I was attending a webinar last November, and I came across this wonderful idea of bee lines, which I thought was all about bees at the time, but clearly isn't. It's about biodiversity lines. And just listening to the other presentations, I keep seeing this recurrent theme of scale. And I think what I'm trying to do is to take the idea of a biodiversity line, which is at the scale of kilometers and tens of kilometers, which are rich in certain attributes that encourage wildlife, and then bring it down to the scale of the garden. And I think that ultimately is what underlies the project. So because I want to plant things, bulbs, wildflowers, I had to start mine back in February in order to at least get some plants growing this year, so that then I could see the effects of what I was doing. And ultimately, the beneficiaries of this are not only the plants themselves, but I guess all the life that's associated with the plants, and particularly the insect pollinators. So I am now sitting here almost day by day looking at the results of either not cutting my grass like Russ, which has amazing effects, or planting some seeds which have taken quite a long time to germinate because the weather's not been very good, but now are beginning to show. So I'm thinking the next 3 or 4 weeks going to get a lot of magic and a lot of nature growing, and I think that's going to fill me with great pleasure. Anyway, that's my hope. So, and that's where I am at the moment.
Thank you, Norman. That's a very positive and quite soothing description to end with. So thank you very much. We've raced through these, and thank you everybody for allowing me to interrupt you and move on. I think Jenny has done some work looking at the projects as the slides were submitted. And can I hand over to you now, Jenny?
Yes, thank you. And thank you everyone who sent their slides in. Apologies if yours isn't included in the interim analysis, but we updated it until as late as we could in order to get it out to you. Anyway, what I've tried to do is just first of all put together a record of who's doing what. I've identified either the title that you gave us, or in the case of anyone who hadn't actually got a title, just a brief description from your slide. Then the organizer, the main organizer of each, who your partners are, where you're located, and then the SDGs that are explicit. Now, in some cases, there is no explicit reference, so I've had to guess. Please come back to me and correct anything that I've guessed incorrectly, and I will edit this. Also, there were some missing, so again, please let us have your SDGs that you want explicitly to address, and I will revise the table. If Norman, we can go on to the next page. The next page just simply tries to draw some observations from that. So at the time of analysis, we had 13 projects, and you can see that they actually span the globe quite nicely. So we've got Canada, South America, Europe, West Indies, Norway, as well as the UK, which is fantastic. I've looked at who we're working with. 4 of the projects involve pupils and teachers, whether in schools or in HE. 3 of them are directly involving the environment, 2 the local community, and then 1 each are involving family, colleagues, and unknown. Now, I said that at the time, but having heard, for example, Eleanor, you've made reference to your nephew, so I can now edit that based on the information that we're gathering this evening. The third heading on the top of your screen looked at the form. Now, some of the projects are entirely new. Some of them are built on, as in the case of Josefina, for example, something that she'd tried previously. Then there are things like Norman's, which is really nested within a larger project. And then 1 or 2 of us have been trying to develop something that might provide a framework for others in the future. Turning then to the explicit SDGs, I can't quite see the bottom of the screen, Norman, so I don't know if I'm going to miss something off here, but I think I've just about got it all. As we would expect, given the brief, most of them either explicitly or implicitly address life on land. It was only in 8 of the 15, though, that was 8 of the 13 projects that I had at the time, that was made explicit. 4 of them are looking at health and well-being, which is the second most important theme. Then sustainable cities and communities, responsible consumption and production are out of sequence now. That should have been higher. They feature in 3 of the projects. Then quality education, gender equality, reducing inequality, peace, justice, and strong institutions. I may not have got that right, but that was my guess from 1 of them. And then partnerships for goals. Again, that's implicit in all of them, but only made explicit in 1. So that's my first attempt at analysing what's going on at the moment. But please, as I say, do send us any amendments or corrections that you want and any additions, and I'll update all of that. So over to you for comments.
I think it's wonderful to see the span. We've heard this at our meeting, but the span across the globe, as you said, Jenny, of these projects. It would be lovely to think of our connected work and all the things we're learning over these few months. So that's lovely to see, isn't it?
And hopefully we'll reach further once they're compiled into the magazine.
Absolutely. Any thoughts from anyone else at this point? I wonder if
sorry, I was just going to say that was my brainstorming. There may be other obvious things that I've missed, so please.
I wanted to say it's so refreshing because as you were saying, I'm building on something previous that didn't work as well. Just to see how many of us are trying different projects, it's always refreshing and gives you a new impulse to try and keep trying, because there's a lot of people that are in the same position or seeking the same thing. So thank you, everyone.
You broke up a little bit there, but I think we understood what you were saying. Thank you. It makes me think about the SDGs because of what you have done here, Jenny, but also of our own thinking about the SDGs. So your comment about the partnerships for the goals. I mean, this is actually a partnership, isn't it, that we're working with, but maybe we haven't always thought in quite that way. Sorry, I spoke over someone else.
Yeah, it was me, Melissa. I think one of the things listening to the presentations that came across to me was the social dimensions of what we're doing. Some of them are very explicitly social, but even those that aren't, like mine, for example, there's quite a lot of engagement of others in them. And I think maybe as a general theme, this whole idea of engaging, persuading, involving, whatever other people will be an interesting thing to look at through this process.
Yes,
And-
I mean, we hope what we do is contagious, don't we?
Yeah.
Best possible sense.
And the second idea of scale, of working across scales and transferring from the large scale to much smaller scales, which I guess is where the personalization of what we're doing comes in.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, I particularly like Glyn's idea on that, in that he is making a personal contribution towards his own well-being, but at the same time offsetting what he's saving to a higher level, if you like. So perhaps that allays some of Russ's qualms about drops in the ocean and how much we can achieve.
Thank you for that, Jenny, because if on £1 a day for a meal, although some person in England said it could do it on 30 pence, but £1 a day is £365 a year. If you direct that to the right place, it helps enormously.
Yes.
And as a vegetarian, I am even more convinced that the world needs those top, and it's argued by botanists, between 10 and 15 centimeters of soil is what we live on. That's between 4 and 6 inches of soil. That's what we need to sustain the planet. And I just noted mentally recently all the things that we need to sustain ourselves on Earth are not buried beneath the earth like oil or diamonds. They are there within the top 4 to 6 inches, the top 10 to 15 centimeters. Just a thought.
Great thought.
Yeah. Thank you.
It's a terrific message, Glyn. Terrific.
Norman, did you want to raise some questions at this point, more generally? I'm just conscious of.
Yeah, so I mean, I'd planned that we'd have a little discussion now, and I think we've still got a few minutes discussion, but I think probably, well, I'll just set the scene, as it were. In the last inquiry we did last year, we looked at the inner development goals as a framework for, if you like, mapping out the sorts of skills and attitudes, capabilities that people needed to engage with the sustainable development goals. And our conclusion was, as using it as a sort of evaluation tool, was that there were some deficiencies in this framework. And one of the most important ones was it omitted the whole idea of motivation and commitment. And, you know, without the will to engage or to try to engage others, then nothing is going to happen. So it seemed to us that motivation and what leads eventually to commitment is something really worth exploring. So I think this could be quite a core theme of what we do, that we're going to inquire into our own actions, our own thinking, first of all, our own planning, our own decisions, why we want to do something. And then if we persist with that, then commitment will develop. But trying to understand the package of motivations that lead to us engaging quite deeply with what we're doing, I think will be a really interesting thing to try and inquire into through this process. So as a starting point today, it was really just going to be, you know, what has motivated you to choose the particular pathway that we've just been hearing about. And I think if we could just have a few minutes of sharing these things, perhaps in the next meeting, we can come back to that in more detail and have a deeper discussion about it.
Norman, that's a meta study in itself.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a great idea.
Thank you, Cliff. But we can, as you've shown very well and very eloquently, by digging into our own if you like, our own little mini projects that concern us, we can surface, you know, quite profound things. And that's the whole point about this scale thing, that by personalizing things, we are the only ones in the world who understand what's going through our minds when we do things. And therefore, we can, at least for ourselves, surface some profound things. And then maybe collectively, when these things start being connected and related, we can see a much bigger picture.
Mm, mm.
So I'm going to shut up now and just listen to any sort of comments around the motivations that have taken you down the path that you have.
Josephina, we can't hear you.
There. I'd like to start just because I have a meeting at the university and I'll be hearing all the rest while I'm on my way there. I have read something about Norman commented something on my comment in LinkedIn saying that, yes, this is a scale that's not my own SDGs, it's trying to influence others. And I think when I read that, plus the idea of to scale up or to go down, I was trying to reach families, which is one of my main interests, because like that's the very nuclear part of how you work with small children, basically. And still find that the influence may be coming from down up. So children may be influencing still more. And I just tried to do it the other way. Normally, that's the way I work because I work with early years. So normally you do something with children that they will take home and you hope that it will impact. And this time I thought I engage parents and see how that goes in families. And still goes back to the idea of children being able to influence more from down up. That's kind of my reflection.
Mm.
Can I respond to that?
Yes.
By asking you, what essentially is your motivation though? Your motivation presumably is something about wanting the children to do something, wanting them to be committed to the environment for the future. What is your basic motivation?
My basic motivation is help families find better ways to live as a community in common projects. Normally, what I see is that families live parallel lives in their houses. So you have a child that's probably following, I don't know, some kind of screen, doing something, you know, their own work or whatever. And I find incredibly interesting to pursue projects together as a family. And I think this could be a very nice way to make family unite in a particular project that's their own.
I have a rider to that in that you have persevered, you showed resilience. What is it that makes you resilient in that way?
Oh God, I don't know, all these meetings probably. Looking at people, looking at the same, trying to follow the same things. And of course, the ones that engage. I think that's my motivation. When you see people that engage, even if it's not a large number, for me, it is really interesting, or I feel responsible for those to keep going because they feel that makes such a difference that even if it's not a large number, it makes an impact in a small one. I think that's good that you make me reflect on that, Jenny. Thank you.
Anybody else want to delve into their deep motivations? Yes. Ross, please.
Guilt, basically. I need to talk more, need to get some ideas, some concrete ideas that people can get a grip of, and to try to share them where I've got the opportunities. You know, like with the family, like with the teachers and the pupils at the school where I'm a governor. That would be a good start. as well as keeping my own house in better order. Actually, I eat too much meat. I don't need it. I'm going to cut down. Glyn has influenced me already in that respect.
How nice. How nice that we have this impact so quickly through one of these meetings. Great.
So I think we've sort of run out of time now, and
Yes.
it's such a big subject that I think we need to give some forethought to it, and bring some positions maybe to the next meeting. So should we just postpone it there and pick up again the idea of motivation? By then we'll be a few months into our projects, and we'll be able to reflect on what has happened so far.
So can I remind people that we all committed ourselves to keeping some form of a diary during our projects, or whatever form works for you, which will contribute at the end to something you may want to report on, submit later on in the life of the project. And I was thinking about exploring some of those things in the diary that I'm trying to keep. I think I've already started thinking about those kinds of things, but this is a nice prompt, and maybe the next meeting will help us with that. So we're planning that next meeting for the first week of June. June the 6th, which is a Tuesday evening, is what we're going for. I think that we'll be sticking with that. So we'll obviously send out more information and reminders and a link and all of those things. And obviously, there may be all sorts of conversations and comments and all sorts of things going on in the LinkedIn space in the meantime. So thank you if you're already doing that. And can I encourage you, if you haven't thought about that yet, it's a quite supportive and gentle space. It's not sparring. It's much more about sharing and thinking and encouragement, I hope. That's what it feels like to me anyway. So can I thank everybody all over the world for your time and interest and contributions today. Thank you for submitting the slides and talking us through what you're thinking about. And I hope we help you continue to think and do. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Melissa, for your moderation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye. Thank you.
Bye.